Hey guys, this is Pedro on the back with a brand new interview again covering the prelude to the start of the 2024 VCT Americas kickoff event. I'm here accompanied by Leaf, the newest member of G2 Esports. Technically, well, given that they're in a new org, but still, never mind that. Leaf, thank you so much for taking the time during this interview. I really appreciate it. I just want to start off exactly, that be joining a new team from Cloud9 in G2 Esports with the rest of the old guard stack. And so, how has it been for you fitting in with these new group of guys?
I think culturally it's kind of the same or very, very similar. Just young like people. I mean, I'm young myself, and we're just stupid, you know what I mean? Just have fun. We all are on the internet, so it's just like we just know, we know each other basically. I've known them for a while, ever since they were on the guard and stuff like that. So it's not like we're complete strangers, obviously. And I'm kind of just joining their system but other like culturally, like I said, great.
And yeah, like, of course, when it comes to looking at your trajectory and just you joining a team such as G2, it's going to come about how what's the difference like when it comes to you playing with this new crop of players compared to your previous stack in Cloud9 for last season. And so I just want to start off just exactly that. You mentioned about the culture stuff and stuff like that. How does it compare with Cloud9 specifically?
Um, I mean, I think it's just I mean everybody's different, right? So it's like we had some people who were a little bit more loose and a little bit shy on C9, and it's kind of the same here. It's just different, people, obviously, like I'd say. Everybody still has kind of like they're still talkative, right? I mean, you kind of have to be if you're going to be pro at attack FPS, but um yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's not a whole lot of like differences really. Obviously, like knowing people really deeply is kind of like like if I know somebody really personally, like I've known some of the people on C9 for years because I've just been on that team for years. But I don't think it's anything truly like different. It's just new, like in terms of the people. So
And yeah, and not talking specifically about the players. I've heard a few conversations about what the guard stack is like when it comes to playing together as a unit, and it's one dimension for one to look at the team perform so well domestically for a long period of time, as a matter of fact. But it's another thing to just make yourself into that kind of system and just trying to fit in with a system that's already been well in place, as I mentioned, for a long time. And so, has there been any difficulty in you fitting in with the rest of the group and just trying to get used to the mannerisms, the communications,
yeah,
the play stuff like that?
yeah, for sure. I think they're a lot different than Cloud9, like the previous iterations, especially last year. I think we were a lot loose and a lot more loose and stuff like that, and kind of like striving in the chaos and stuff like that. Whereas like now it's a lot more not nothing necessarily set, but it's more like um trying to be like same page and make sure we're thorough with what we do and like what we're doing makes sense and not really just like it's more so like good decision making with good execution, whereas like Cloud9 was kind of like I'd say decent, like pretty decent decision making, obviously, right? But like we just had
Right.
really good execution, which was what we kind of fell back on a lot of the time. And we just had like individually good people. But like on this team, I feel like we have everything, you know what I mean? And it was rough in the beginning, the first couple of months, but I feel like we kind of figured it out and we just talked in general because like I don't think it was specifically for me like uncomfortable. I think there was some instances where I was and stuff like that, but that's just kind of like getting used to a new team, like I'm just making sure that like you're trying your hardest to learn. But yeah, I would say like just in general, like as a unit, because metas change and stuff like that, and comps change, and I'm obviously a different player than Tex. So it's like there are things that had to change, I'd say, and also just be like adjusted per se. Um, so yeah, it definitely was rough, but I feel like we figured it out pretty good now.
Interesting that meant that you described your time a little bit in Cloud9 about as chaotic. So, if you say that Cloud9 is chaotic, then how would you describe this this G2 lineup, in one word, if that's possible.
Structured, probably. I think structured, or just like I don't know if discipline would be the right word, but like yeah, I've been really just structured, like just or like thought out, basically, like thorough. I'd say. I think thorough is a good way to put it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, of course. And uh, um, on top of just covering your experience so far in G2, I want to grab your thoughts as to how you reflect on the season that was, and I mean 2023. Of course, everyone knows about how Cloud9, despite going through pretty massive roster changes at the start of the year, performed very well in the domestic side, finishing within top two, I think, first seed, second seed, on the regular season, but then crashing out in playoffs and then LCQ. And so when you look at the season that was, what are your biggest takeaways from the failures, struggles of Cloud9 from your point of view, and then that you then adjusted for this new go around with G2?
Um, yeah, I mean, I had, oh, like you said, like I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I learned from that. Kind of just like I kind of felt like I grew more as like a person instead of like a player, to be honest. And I feel like it helped me a lot be a better like people person and be a better teammate. Because like you said, like I got taught, well, we got tossed in like kind of unfortunate situation. I won't say it's like good or bad, right? Where we had the early roster move and stuff like that, and we had to pick up rookies and people that weren't very even like qualified technically in like the tier two level, right? So it's like going into that, it's like if I treat it with like bitterness and stuff like that, and I treat it with just anger, it's just not going to work out for anybody, right? Like it's not going to work out for me, it's not going to work out for the rookies and stuff like that. So it's like I feel like the scenario kind of made me get a better perspective of like what I need to be in order to like help other people succeed. And I feel like that's kind of what's helped me, um, at least in the start, like on this team, is that it's just like compared to like a year ago or even like a year and a half ago, like I feel like I changed a lot as a teammate. Um, and I've always been like very vocal and stuff like that, but it's more so just like the tone and making sure that like what I'm saying is getting through to people in a way that like actually means something, where they're not just gonna take it as, just like harsh, like being rude basically. Because at the end of the day, like you want to enjoy playing with your teammates, and you also want to enjoy playing the game. So it's like if you have people that are making it difficult, or even like you're being difficult on yourself too much, then it's like you're just not going to enjoy it. So I think just that was like the biggest takeaway. Like obviously we had like a very, like you said, we got second seed, didn't qualify for anything internationally, and then didn't end up making it through to LCQ. But I mean, even then, it's just like it's just about like looking at it like from a different, or from a perspective of not like anger and stuff like that, because it's like stuff's gonna happen, and like I'm pretty young myself, so it's like stuff's gonna happen, and it was kind of just my first like real glimpse of like stuff not being, not even necessarily fair, but just like not the way you wanted it. So it's like yeah, it just helped me, I guess, be a better teammate.
And of course, and despite the fact that Cena had to go through those roster changes, you guys still were able to perform while finishing top three outside of the of those that made champions slash
Yeah.
masters at the end of the year. I want to grab your thoughts now as to what it's like working with Valen in particular, because I talked a little bit with Tex yesterday and how he views his experience playing with Valen. He mentioned that he's very meticulous, a very meticulous person that just wants to take the initiative on basically every single part of the match or of a given round. And so, how have you seen the leadership of Valorant as the IGO compared to your past IGO members in the past?
I mean, I said it, kind of just like as a team identity, right? Because of him, I'd say like we're just very thorough. We're very, like Tech said it too. I think that's a good way to describe it. Very meticulous, where it's just like we're not gonna try to like skip over something. We're not gonna try and just like assume stuff and stuff like that. We're gonna try and play the game kind of um step by step. So it's like I would agree. Like he's very meticulous. He's very like he wants stuff to be his way, which I think is a good thing in an IGL. Um, and you know, like he's gonna show that he wants it by saying how he wants it. So compared to like other IGLs, I mean, that I've played with personally, I mean, I think he's very similar to like a lot of them. I think like stubbornness and like what's the word, like just being very forward with what you want is kind of like a trait of a leader, right? Because you kind of, if you're leading, you want stuff to be led how you want it. So it's like I think it's just very similar in that regard. And I mean, he's very, very good at it, and he's very good at directing his voice. So yeah.
Now also I now want to move ahead towards the present, and then also the future. As of now, Group C is where G2 is going to be at in the upcoming kickoff event, which consists of Crew Esports and also Evil Geniuses. There's been plenty of talk about how this group will fare. What's your opinion of these two opponents in this group for G2? For each of Crew and also EG.
Um, I mean, I think that like just in general, not even for just our group, but like nobody should be underestimated. It's technically like a pretty new meta with the Sky nerf, to be honest with you, and all the buffs that have happened in the off season, map changes and map like icebox being put in. You can't really know, you can't really expect anything good or bad out of any of these teams until you watch them play or you play against them. So it's like we're not going to be too like narrow-minded and just look at last year's results or just look at the roster on paper, because it's like everybody's good. Like, you know what I mean? Like people wouldn't be here on the 11 teams if they weren't good enough to be here. Um, but it's just like I said, like we're not going to be skipping over stuff. Like we're not going to be like, oh, we're playing against EG and it's not their championship roster. Like this should be easy. You know what I mean? Like everybody has to earn their spot too, like in these rosters and stuff like that. So it's like everybody's going to be playing 100%, 110% of what they can give. Especially when it's this little matches to get like you only need EG only needs like 2 wins to get to Madrid. So it's like they're going to be giving it their all. They're going to be trying everything. They're going to show everything. So it's like it's going to be hard games no matter what, no matter who we play against. And I think we just are going to be mentally prepared for that.
Course, of course. And you mentioned a little bit about, your opinion on the recent changes to the game, aka the nerfs to Sky as an agent. Of course, it's not just that happened to the game, just but also other changes during the off season that has affected the pro scene. So I want to know your opinions on these changes that have happened specifically onto the agents compositions and also the map pool, the new map pool. What is one thing that you like and hate the most from these changes?
Um, I mean, I think Bree. I mean, technically, like since last year, like champs. Obviously, there's been some off-season tournaments, but there's 2 new maps, right? Breeze and Icebox, and I think I wasn't too fond of Icebox back when it was out, because it was in the beginning of last year's season too. But I mean, they really didn't change anything to it, so I think it's honestly going to play basically the same. Most of the meta agents that were um like nerfed, like Sky and stuff like that, like mainly just Sky. Sky's the only one that really got nerfed. She wasn't really played on that map anyway, so the comp won't change for that map. But for any map that like Sky is like main initiator, any of these comps where it's like single initiator, double controller, stuff like that, like Lotus for example, where it's commonly like a smoker and Viper and stuff like that. Sky's gonna just lose a lot of value. We may like I think we're gonna see a lot more double initiator just in general. So I feel like it's gonna be very interesting to see what people can come up with, because Sky was kind of like the person I feel like that like let you choose whatever you want because of the amount of info that she had, and now that she's nerfed, she's not as oppressive with that info, which means that like you need to get it somewhere else, which is usually either another initiator or another sentinel. So it's like we may see a lot more double sentinels, double initiators, like I said. Um, for like the Lotus changes and stuff like that, I think the map's just gonna change. Like it'll change slightly, right? Like obviously there's more spots and stuff like that. But overall, like these maps are gonna play vaguely the same. The map control is still like the same. It's just gonna change with the agents.
Very interesting insight to how you view the game, which I really appreciate, Leaf. One final question, mostly sort of on the general aspect of it. When it comes to, I know you mentioned a little bit about, expectations and how you're looking at your opponents in the kickoff event, and also outside of that, beyond that, um, when you look at this team, your team G2, and how it stacks up with the rest of VCT Americas. How do you view the current level of G2 as of now at this current moment in time before the start of the season?
Um, I'd say like I'm a pretty realistic person, so I won't say that we're like top, one, top two. I think we still have a lot of work to put in, but I would say that like my expectations for like middle of the year and stuff like that is to qualify to these events, which would mean, like top three and stuff like that. So, I would say like that is honestly realistic for us, assuming that, we play up to our level and that we know of and stuff like that. Like I said, I honestly would not be surprised if one of these teams that people are viewing as like lower in the general community ends up being good. I mean, we saw it last year with EG and even us on C9 a little bit. You know what I mean? Everybody kind of wrote us off, and obviously we didn't qualify for anything, but um, domestically we did very, very good. So it's just like we just have to, like I said, take every match serious, not undervalue anybody. Like even Crew last year kind of proved something. They went 0-9 regular season into LCQ win. So it's like um it's just gonna be rough. So but I think that we have the people, like the talent and just like the staff behind us in order to get to the top international events. And I honestly think we could win them too.
Of course, and hopefully you're able to do exactly that with G2. Leaf, thank you so much for taking the time doing this interview. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your answers for this conversation, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you. Have a good day.